Hey everybody, I'm Katie, and welcome to Head of the Class. I'm joined today by Mrs. Adele Weeks, one of Freedom Project Academy's high school teachers. Mrs. Weeks has been teaching in the science department since 2016. Mrs. Weeks, you earned your college degree in biology and medical technology. Tell us why you decided to become a teacher, now in physics for FPA, and being a chemistry teacher as well.
Well, I was a homeschooling mom, and when my last child went to college, I thought, well, what do I do now? And I knew that I could teach the things I had taught my students, and I've always liked science, and my dad was a chemical engineer, and, from early ages, he loved to explain how things work to me. He even made things. At home, he made everything from fireworks to hair conditioner to wooden sandals, to a four-cylinder car before there were even such things. Anyway, so I had an interest in science, and I had been teaching my own kids, and I was tutoring students who were taking science from online schools, and I asked them how that worked, and taught for a while for one in chemistry, and then I was helping one of the FPE chemistry teachers out, and a physics position opened up, and they asked if I wanted it, and I thought, well, why not? I use the same curriculum with my boys, and, the rest was history. Now I'm in my second year teaching for FPE.
Now, physics is an upper-level subject of science. How do you present the course, which includes lab projects, in a virtual classroom to engage the students and help them learn the material?
Well, the curriculum we use is very good. It's by Apologia, written by Dr. Weil, and it was written for homeschoolers so that they could do all that. You're right that it's a hands-on subject for sure, but it was written so that they could do all the experiments with easily obtainable household things and maybe things you'd have to go to a hardware store for. So, for example, they would study circular motion, and he has them tying little washers on strings and running it through pen tubes, twirling them overhead at different radii and measuring the speed. And when they do optics, refraction and reflection of light, they use flashlights, and maybe they use their mom's Pyrex baking dishes and bounce the light off at different angles or up through water. When they study periodic motion, they'll have Ziploc bags full of sand on springs that'll be bouncing, and they'll be measuring different things about them. We study electricity. They build an electroscope. They form a paper clip into a loop with little tails that hang down, and then they cut up foil, and they charge up balloons on their hair and get the charge on there and see the foils spread apart. So there are a lot of things you can do, right there and get your hands dirty. But we also make use of online simulations. There are a lot of PhET simulations that we use to study Newton's laws, optics, electric fields, etc. So it really does lend itself well to an online course.
Now, when you get some time to step away from the classroom and maybe you don't have to grade those lab assignments, what do you like to do in your free time?
Well, I love to swim. I swim a mile probably 4 times a week, and we love to bike. My husband and I love to bike ride and hike and camp. I guess those kinds of things.
They sound like fun things to do. Now, your teaching experience, it extends beyond a decade, and it included homeschooling your children. Why did you come to FPA, and what is making you stay as a teacher with FPA?
Well, FPA's philosophy, I really believe in the classical Christian education, which used to be the run-of-the-mill education when I was growing up. In other words, we learned reading by phonics. We wrote cursive. We learned math by memorizing our math tables. And we had a history education that was respectful of the religious intent and the ideals of our founding fathers. And so I want to be part of a school that promotes that. In fact, I'm paying for my own grandchildren to attend such a school.
Now, before we wrap up, we're going to do what I'm calling a quick fire question round. So answer the following questions as quickly as possible. What are what are 5 words to describe you?
Well, I'm encouraging, I'm patient, I'm fun-loving, I'm quick, I'm willing to go the extra mile for my students.
Okay. How about what are 4 favorite places to travel to or places you'd like to visit?
Any warm beaches would be number 1. And I think the other three would have to be places where I have grandchildren. Sydney, Australia. I have a granddaughter there, or I've a daughter with 3 granddaughters there. San Antonio, Texas, and Washington, D.C.
Okay. And how about what are 3 favorite books that you have or book recommendations you can make?
Well, physics books would include Einstein's Dreams, which is kind of whimsical. It's a fictional collage of stories that Albert Einstein supposedly dreamed. So, in one, time is circular, so the people are fated to repeat triumphs and failures over and over. In another, there's a place where time stands still. And in another, time's the nightingale, sometimes trapped by a bell jar. The Fly in the Cathedral, that's the story of Cockcroft and Walton splitting the atom. So hitting the nucleus in an atom is like aiming for a fly in a cathedral. Galileo's Daughter, which is the true story of Galileo's life, especially his conflict with church and science. So there are three pretty good ones.
All right. How about 2 historical figures that you'd like to have dinner with?
Well, hands down, it would be Isaac Newton, number 1, because I'd like to ask him about his universal gravitation and his laws of motion and all the things he did. He built the first reflecting telescope, and when he needed it to explain free fall, he just developed calculus. He was pretty much a Renaissance person. He was even knighted by the Queen, and he was a devout Christian. So I would love to have dinner with him. I'd even buy him dinner. And maybe Robert Millikan. He did a very cool experiment in which he sprayed little oil droplets into a chamber, gave them a charge, and then by adjusting the charges on 2 plates, got them to hover midway in between. And he measured the electric charge on them, and he was the one that determined what the charge on the electron was. So those 2, I'd love to have dinner with them.
Now, finally, what's one piece of advice you have for your students?
I would say that they should try to build a broad foundation of knowledge while they're in high school on which they can build when they get into college. So I'd say when you're young like this and it's early, learn all the facts that you can about science, about languages, about history, about math, art. And so that would be my educational advice to them. And then I'd say just think about what you want to be, what you want to go to college for, and prepare yourself for a strong vocation that, especially if you're a man, will help you support a family, and a strong avocation that you can just, pour your creative juices into. And then, of course, later on, a spouse, children, and most of all, a strong faith in Jesus Christ.
Mrs. Weeks, thank you so much for being here today. Learn more about our excellent teachers and Freedom Project Academy at fpeusa.org.